Also a big welcome to people who are joining us online. So Frank O'Mara is my name. I'm the President of the Animal Task Force. As you can probably guess from my accent, I'm from Ireland. I'm the Director of TEGAS, the National Research and Advisory Body for Agriculture and Food. And as you can also probably hear, I have a bit of a cold on me, so I'm a little bit nasally this morning. But anyway, look, we will proceed. So for those of you that don't know about the Animal Task Force, we're a partnership between research organisations from 21 European countries and also 5 industry representative organisations. And the aim of the Animal Task Force is to foster a sustainable and competitive livestock sector through research and innovation. And in 2024, we published 2 important documents as part of that mission. We published a vision paper for the livestock sector in Europe, and then we published a strategic research and innovation agenda to show how research and innovation can help to achieve that vision. And both of those documents are outside on the table, and if you wish to pick up a hard copy, you can do that, or they're available on our website also. So every year the Animal Task Force picks a topic, and we organise a scientific meeting and a seminar like this on that topic. And for 2024, the topic is Livestock are More Than Food. And we had an excellent symposium at the EAAP meeting in Florence last August in collaboration with the Livestock Farming Commission on that topic. And today we're following up with a seminar including industry and farmer speakers again on that topic. So the agenda for today, just in brief, I'll introduce the speakers as we come to them and their presentations, but we'll have a number of sessions this morning. We'll have a break for coffee at 10:40. We'll come back with a number of additional presentations, and then we will have a panel discussion at 12 o'clock, and we will finish at 1 o'clock, hopefully. So if there is time at the end of each presentation for questions, we will take those questions, and people that are listening online, please put your questions into the chat function and we will get to you if we can. If there is no time at the end of the speakers, we will have to move on, but there may be an opportunity during the panel discussion for any questions that you would have to direct those towards the speaker. So look, without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker, who is Sofia SANTOS, and Anna is the Secretary General of the Animal Task Force, and she's from Portugal. She works for an organisation there called FEDIAF, but she also works for Animal Task Force as our Secretary General. So Anna is going to summarise the symposium that we had in Florence and just give us a flavour of what the main points of interest from the presentations were during that symposium, and that sort of sets the scene then for the rest of the presentations this morning. So over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Frank. Yes, I will try to summarize one day, an amazing day that we had. I hope soon the presentation comes. In Florence on the 1st of September. So it was a whole day around this theme. Okay, in front. So we had a total of 18 theater presentations, and let me just remind you, this is a joint, This is a joint seminar with the Livestock Farming Systems Commission from the European Federation of Animal Science. So we had a full day, 18 theater presentations. We had an introductory communication setting the scene by Philippe Becquet from the FAO LEAP, co-chair, which today we will have Barbara online, Barbara Amman, also co-chair, so she will also present this area. We had one presentation on the economic value of animal source foods, one presentation on societal issues and attractiveness of the sector, 3 typical, in between commas, I would say, productivity presentation. Let's not forget this is a European Federation of Animal Science conference. And then we had a wide spectrum of communications Following the more than food topics, we managed to cover in Florence almost all circles in complete of our image. And we had 6 communications that clearly address the biodiversity and ecosystem services, and 2 communications focused on landscape management and also wild or rural fire management. I'm not going, obviously, into detail with all of them. You will soon find the report of this symposium online in our newly website, lovely and amazing website, which I all advise you to visit, and also the summary of this. So when it comes to the role of livestock in circular bioeconomy systems, Philippe Becquet presented the integration and how livestock can contribute in the circular bioeconomy. Interesting concepts were presented: bioeconomy, circular economy, and circular bioeconomy, joining both together. We will hear about this more later this day, so I will not linger on this, even because I have a short time to go through a lot of things. We had a presentation on anaerobic digestion on manure. This was focused on the Danish reality and the force that Denmark is promoting on anaerobic digestion more than other types of solutions like gasification, pyrolysis. Anaerobic digestion is the most developed route for the utilization of carbon from animal manure and biofuel. It's an important tool to reduce agriculture carbon footprint and to optimize gain of feed additives, feed and management changes in the livestock management production systems, and can degrade most antibiotics, so cleaning the antibiotic issue, and can play and plays a major role in the transformation of the society. And it was a really interesting presentation with a lot of technical information on anaerobic digestion, and it was really nice. We've touched leather. We had a presentation from the Italian leather. As you know, the Italian leather sector is quite strong. And they presented us with very interesting numbers. 99.5% of leather, as expected, is coming from animal byproducts, so the different types of skins that then are tanned. And then only a small part is vegetable, the soles, for example, of our shoes or something. The tanned leather, the content of bio-based carbon varies between 65 and 98%, depending on the type of processing that is carried out on the tanning process. And this is, a big proportion. And if we compare with non-animal alternatives, then there's not this bio-based carbon, and it makes the weight change a lot because we are not working on circularity. Also, then we went beyond basic nutrition. We had an amazing, excellent presentation by Paul Cotter, presenting us the more than milk, just typical milk. The content of 20% whey protein, and he made like a discrimination on the different components and how they can be beneficial as bioactive compounds. Benefit effects of whey protein on mood and cognition, benefits on diabetes, and also the fermentation process with products like kefir that have been more and more proved to have quite beneficial impacts on human health. So looking beyond, the basic milk, which per se is already a superfeed, or food in this case. Then we move to biopolymers, production properties and applications. We had a wide presentation that touched, the different classes of commercially important biopolymers that are currently coming from animal origin materials. These polymers have found numerous applications in pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and other biomedical fields, and in some cases their application can be further expanded through chemical modification. We talked about gelatin, collagen, and insulin, chitosan, heparin, and hyaluronic acid. And it gave us, this wide view on the different things that we can take out. Moving on to production systems, we talked about agroecology and ethical perspectives on the agroecology in the way to move and to insert welfare. Jacopo Goracci made a presentation that, after the presentation, we made a road from traditional agriculture to sustainable intensification by using the resources in an efficient use of resources and preventing future degradation of natural habitats. Then moving to ecological intensification of agriculture to improve the production, the efficiency of agrosystems, and also taking into account ecosystem services, and eventually ending up in sustainable extensification of agriculture, working with nature, for nature, and taking out all the different types of animal products that we have, and we are here talking today as well. Then we had a wide view on pastoral management of mountain pastures. It was focused on alpine mountain pastures, but it can be, transported for other mountain pasture areas. We touched biodiversity, food production. Here, it was really interesting to see how the history of these areas have been linked to human occupation and, the shaping of mountain areas and mountain pastures by human occupation and livestock use throughout the ages, and the cultural heritage that we have in several of these areas, closely linked to the history of the countries and to, the heart of the populations. And of course, carbon sequestration, the nutrient cycling of these type of livestock production systems, wildfire and rural fire control or prevention of erosion and flood control, which in these areas is very important. Pollination, water purification, all of these ecosystem services that very often we find it very hard to monetize, to provide, how much is the worth of this. And also looking at the development of sustainable pastoral systems, looking for better adaptation to climate change, which is a major challenge that all these areas are facing nowadays, and the help to reduction of wildfires and rural fires, and provision of different ecosystem services, and again, try to monetize this. And then we moved on to attractiveness of the sector. So we had this more social science input on here, on our symposium. It was presented by Anne-Charlotte Dequet. Livestock farming faces the challenge of workforce renewal, besides all the other challenges that we know. Farmers are aging, retirements are on the way, there's a need for farmers and employees, and there's a need to capture, people, especially young people, to this area. So she presented 3 axes of attractiveness: the image of the profession, access conditions to this profession, and exercise conditions. And it was really interesting to look at the numbers. You all know this. This is European numbers. And we know that it either stays or continues this path, and then we're in trouble soon enough, or we manage to make a change here. And this is all up to us to provide input and to help to make this change. Specifically on the French reality, these data were particularly interesting when they were looking at agricultural students. So we're talking of a public that is already pro or inclined to agriculture area. So the livestock careers appear to be in line with the young people that are currently in agricultural education. Autonomy, outside work, contact with animals, diversity of tasks, etc. However, and then we have the red parts, the balance between income and free time does not seem satisfactory. It is important to be aware of this, and how can we change or adapt our practices to capture more farmers, young farmers, and to so that this can move on. So this was also a very interesting presentation, and I will finish with this approach. Luigi Cembalo presented a wide range of information concerning the economic value of animal source foods, and it wasn't a challenge, it was more like a provocation. Is this the livestock challenges as a whole that we face nowadays a wicked problem? Wicked problems are complex problems because there's no agreement on the definition or the clear definition of the problem, nor an obvious approach to solving it. So it makes the starting base is already complex or wicked. So to identify wicked problem, it has to have structural complexity, lack or excess of knowability, fragmentation of this knowability or the information, framing, knowledge framing. So on this area, there's this on knowledge, on this, there's this, and this is this. Interest differentiation, because you can look at the knowledge from different interests or different points of views and just picking up on that one. And power distribution. So this problem cannot be solved by acquiring more data, because we say, okay, we need more data to reply to this. But then the more data we get, the more questions we get, or the more problems or challenges we get. So no general consensus on how to address it and to navigate on the necessary trade-offs. So are we in the livestock a wicked problem per se? I don't know. This was something that we can, further explore. But I think it was interesting that we had this, this vision. And because I'm finishing, I'm going to pause this. Next year, the theme is livestock farming systems in the next generations. So a lot of what we spoke and we will speak today, starts setting the scene for next year. And again, as usual, we will have two events. The LFS EAP event, and in Brussels within a year, more or less, we will be gathered here to also discuss this new theme. And I am finishing on my time, as expected. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for reminding us how many really interesting papers we had at that symposium in Florence. And I think that has put us in the frame of mind to continue on the discussion here now this morning. So, look, we're delighted to be joined by Carlos Martin ÓVILO from DG Agri. So Carlos is from Spain. He's an agricultural engineer by training, but he's, after working for 12 years in the private sector, he has been in the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture and here in EU institutions since 2009, mainly in DG Agri since 2012. And Carlos is currently the head of unit dealing with markets for animal products. And he's going to talk to us, I suppose, the vision of policymakers around livestock, and livestock are more than food, our topic for today. So over to you, Carlos.
The green button? The green, of course. Thanks so much, Frank, for the introduction and for the promotion. I'm not yet the head of unit. I'm only the deputy, but give me some time. Let's see how I do it today. Thank you very much, and thank you also to Anna for the introduction. Congratulations for the agenda you have put together. It looks very interesting. And I feel like being the first speaker this morning gives me somehow a bit of the prerogative to spoil some of the facts and figures the rest of the speakers will share afterwards, because I guess I will touch in many of the points that the more experts than me will go more in detail. I also want to apologize to organizers because I shared my presentation only yesterday, because I decided only the day before yesterday that I would do a presentation. The trigger was that it was the magic of the social networks The other day, a couple of days ago, browsing Facebook, all of a sudden popped on my, I think it was Facebook, this very nice chart. I wonder what algorithm made this Facebook show me this chart. Maybe they knew I was going to talk about this topic, about byproducts and co-products from food, from meat. It's a very old one, an American one, but I thought it was a very nice picture to illustrate the topic we are going to discuss today. I am supposed to talk mostly about the policy angle. As Frank said in the introduction, I work in the Agri. I work in the unit dealing with animal products market, so I'm a market guy. So I'm not dealing with research. I'm not dealing directly with environmental sustainability. We have the expert here in the room. Of course, I am not in other DGs who are dealing with health aspects or internal market aspects. So the number one topic or policy topic that in my unit we have been involved in the last 5 years has been livestock sustainability, which is funny because I've been 12 years in this unit. The number one topic in these 5 years was livestock sustainability. In the previous 7 years, not a single day we talked about livestock sustainability. So it's clearly a topic that has emerged quite abruptly and strongly. So coming from this very nice chart, we'll go to another one done by me. So it looks like a kindergarten drawing. Sorry for that. But I wanted to use it to show you when we talk about this sustainability or the magnifying glass that has been put recently in the last years on the livestock sector, to a big extent focus on the environmental sustainability and in particular two aspects, inputs and outputs for livestock. On the input part, the accent very often is made about how much feed, how much imported feed we use to feed the animals, how much water we consume, they drink, we use to water the crops, how much land they occupy. That's for the input part, and on the output part, obviously, the emissions of greenhouse gases and the pollution in air, in soil, in water, etc. And very often, I would say in a quite simplistic way, all these negative, let's say, views on the sector, on the use of inputs and the generation of outputs, it's put or reduced to a glass of milk or a steak, and we often hear, okay, this one steak, you need, I don't know how many thousands or millions of liters of water to produce one steak, or how many emissions per glass of milk, etc. And of course, apart from being very simplistic approaches, the truth is that there's a lot done together with these steaks, with this milk, and this is precisely the topic of today. Everything that is producing livestock, from livestock, that is not factored in when they do these calculations about use of resources or generation of emissions. Before going to talk about the topic of livestock and food, I want to, at least in one slide, to do a bit digression to focus, at least to, because if you have built a strong narrative on this livestock sustainability, I will not miss the opportunity to use it today. Also, at least to remember that on the two parts of the screen, on the input part, to recall, especially when it comes to feed and land, to recall that at world level, most of what the animals are eating is matter that cannot be used for human consumption, that most of the land that is used for rearing animals cannot be used for crops or for products for human consumption, and all in all results in the first statement, which is the miracle that animals make of producing biomass, of transforming biomass, residues, waste, grass into very nutritious, I would say more than nutritious, delicious food such as meats and milk. That on the input part, and on the output part, on the greenhouse emissions, etc., It's true, of course, we all know that livestock generates emissions, but it's also true that they have been decreasing in the past, that they are projected to continue decreasing in the future, and that, this chart is from FAO data, the EU is the only region in the world where emissions are significantly decreasing. So looks like these other guys with positive bars are not going to reduce significantly the emissions in the coming years. It's just basically Europe, the one doing it. So we shouldn't overestimate the effects of what we are doing. So that was, again, to put a bit of perspective of these negative impacts of livestock as they are very often looked at. And now let's go to really the question on livestock is more than food, which already the title is as if it was not enough being food. Come on, so being food is already quite a lot, but indeed livestock produces many other outputs. And I would start first with what we call the externalities, the public goods, before getting to the material. I think it will be covered later on in some other presentations. From a social point of view, livestock is maintaining the social fabric in many areas, rural areas, where there are not many other economic activities. So thanks to the livestock activity, it's fixing population in these areas, remote areas, mountain areas. As a result, about 4 million people in the EU are living directly from farms having livestock, and the whole food business related to animal products, it's a powerhouse, mobilizing 400 billion euros. So this is creating jobs, this is creating economy, so to say. So these are positive, social positive externality from livestock. And from the environmental point of view, I said before, I acknowledge that, of course, livestock is generating emissions, but there's also a way to capture and to counter these emissions with these positive externalities. First of all, in terms of carbon sequestration, most of these positive externalities are related, obviously, with extensive livestock, with grazing, maintaining grasslands, etc. And these grasslands are have a big potential for carbon sequestration. These grasslands that account for more or less 1/3 of the total agricultural area in the EU, and so this is a big chunk of land that has to be maintained. Somebody has to take care of it. Somebody has to manage it, so to prevent fires, to prevent floods, to prevent the biodiversity in this land, in these grasslands, to disappear. Also, another interesting fact: about 1/3 of the ecosystems that are listed in the Annex 1 of the Habitats Directive are ecosystems that are to be maintained through active grazing. So it's obvious that the livestock activity has these positive, these environmental goods. Also, it will be tackled later on, of course. With livestock, we can. It's a source of circular economy, of biogas, with methanization, organic fertilizers, etc. So these are, as I said, public goods, positive externalities that come together with livestock. Then if we go more in concrete terms physically the byproducts or co-products from livestock, and I come back again to the chart, the graphic I used at the beginning. First of all, I would split it into parts. The top part that refers to hide and hair. Obviously, the first thing that comes to our minds is the use of or the production of wool and leather. There will be a presentation later on, much more detail about wool, and maybe they have more concrete figures. I try to put together some figures that we got from farm organizations, from different member states. These are the tons of wool apparently produced in some of the member states. It's not complete, but roughly speaking, I guess I wouldn't be far if I said that about 100,000 tons of wool are produced every year in the EU, and also leather. These are the main countries producing leather in the EU, especially Italy and Portugal. And Spain and Germany. It's a production worth, I read, about 8 billion euros as well. So both are very important sectors. By the way, I was last week in Rome, and I saw that in every corner there's a leather shop. So now I understand the size of this bubble for Italy. So that's for leather and wool. Then for the rest of the uses of the animal, here I'm going to use some data from EFPRA, the European Animal Byproduct Processing Sector. I don't know if there's anybody here in the room. But that's quite shocking. So if we put together all the meat production in the EU, is roughly 40 million tons of meat, if all the meats together. These 40 million tons include the meat of the dairy cows that before have produced 150 million liters of 150 million tons of milk every year. So that's the food part. But that's just 60–70% of the animal. So the rest can be and is rendered and produces a lot of products, which is, I would say, the paradigm of circularity. Because if one thinks about what are the 3 key inputs where we are extremely dependent when it comes to agricultural sector, the 3 ones are feed, energy, and fertilizers. And the 3 of them can be obtained from these byproducts from animals. All in all, rough figures, we are talking about 16 million tons of raw material that can be used for feed, for energy, even for food, some food uses. Out of the 16 million, 13 million can be, following the health rules, can be reconnected to the food and feed circuits, in particular feed. The proteins, the processed animal proteins, can be used for fish feed, for aquaculture, to feed carnivore species like salmons or trouts or some kind of shrimps. For animal feed, pig meat, poultry, and for pet food. So we are talking about several hundred thousands of tons of feed for animals, for fish, and for pet food is more than 1 million tons of pet food that can be produced with these proteins, which, by the way, have a much lower environmental footprint than imported soy. Also fats. There are close to 1 million tons of fat that can be rendered and can be used also for animal feed, and also, again, with much lower environmental footprint than palm oil. There are also food uses, I didn't put it here, but also certain types of fats can still be edible and can be used for pastry, for bakery, and for the delicious Belgian fries we can see here in Place Jourdain. So that's for food and feed. Then what cannot be channeled into these circuits of food and feed, together with also the fallen stock, the animals that don't make it to the slaughterhouse, that they die in the farms, etc. It's all also rendered and goes to the production of energy and fertilizers. In terms of energy, solid and liquid fuels. According to, again, to these figures from EFPRA, coal can be replaced in power stations with meat and bone meal, and the biofuels can be produced, enough biofuels to power about 2 million cars per year. Just as a reference, in Germany, so that would be half of the production of cars in Germany in 1 year. So it's quite a big figure, with, again, much lower greenhouse emissions than those of fossil diesel. That's for energy. And then for fertilizer, sorry, I shouldn't go yet. For fertilizer, 2 out of the 3 key nutrients that we need for fertilization, which are nitrogen and phosphorus, can be also recycled from animal byproducts. Here I will use the most universal unit, yes, the most universal unit to measure surface, which is the football pitch. And then for nitrogen, the production of nitrogen can cover can be used to fertilize about 300,000 football pitches, and phosphorus can be used to fertilize about 2 million football pitches. So something that's very, very catchy. I have to hurry up, and I didn't start yet to talk about policy, but I will be fast. From a policy perspective, obviously we have the CAP, so anything that is supporting animal production is directly or indirectly supporting the production of these byproducts. We have the CAP schemes and the different types of payment, basic payments, so all of them directly or indirectly are supporting the livestock sector. It's particularly relevant, definitely, the coupled income support. Also, in rural development support, there are specific interventions, investments for installation of anaerobic digesters or for the use of organic fertilizers. In particular, there are 7 member states who have included in their CAP strategic plans interventions to promote the use of organic fertilizers to replace synthetic fertilizers. Eco schemes are in the center. These are also key to promote and to support all these positive externalities I referred before in the environmental externalities in relation to maintenance of grasslands, the positive, the capture of carbon, the maintenance of landscape, the maintenance of biodiversity, etc. All these instruments are supported in the CAP. Then we have the angle of the research, also within the Agri perspective. Within the CAP network, sorry, we have the EIP projects where many possibilities are there to support research, cooperation projects in relation to any topic, but definitely the topics we are going to discuss today. I had did a search, you have here the link, I did a search of some keywords, and you can find projects that have been supported or have been supported already for the management valorization of byproducts, for the valorization of wool, for biological leather. You have here just an example of a list of different projects that can be supported. And last but not least, a couple of elements which are beyond my competencies because they belong to other DGs. The framework for textiles that falls in the competence of DG Grow. They have a number of rules for labeling, for the strategy for sustainability and sustainable and circular textiles, for standards for leather and textiles, etc. This is the other part of the policy framework. And last but not least, of course, the animal byproducts regulation under the competence of DG Santé, which is regulating all the health aspects of safety aspects on the use of these animal byproducts. And with this, sorry for the rush, I finish my presentation. I took the liberty of taking one picture from IWTO, which you will be talking later. So I think it's the best way to conclude the presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. We have time for one question, if there is one, from anybody in the room. Okay, I'm going to take the opportunity and gain a minute or two. So thank you very much, Carlos. Maybe you'll be able to hang around for a little while until coffee, and we can chat to you during coffee. So look, thanks for giving us a good overview of the position of livestock and livestock products in the EU and the various policies that surround those. We'll move on to our next presentation, which is by Frédéric JOLY from INRAE. And Frédéric is joining us online. I hope.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
so, yes, great, Frédéric. Just let me introduce you so quickly. You started your professional life working in Mongolia, of all places, working on the reintroduction of wild equid in Mongolia. Since then, you did your PhD there in relation to local grass-based systems and their vulnerability to climate hazards. Frédéric now works at INRAE, still in grass-based livestock systems, and more specifically on their environmental evaluation. And he's particularly interested in the combined study of the positive and negative environmental contribution of animal production systems, and that's going to be the subject of his talk here this morning. So delighted that you can join us, Frédéric, and we'll give you the floor now.
Thank you for the introduction, and I apologize for not being with you today, but I'm not far. In fact, I am in the Netherlands for a conference on ecosystem services. So my talk is going to be rather methodological, but I guess it's important to talk about methodologies because they can have deep implications in terms of decision making. So I'm going to present you some results about the combined evaluation through life cycle assessment and ecosystem services of food and non-food contributions of livestock farming systems. And as a start, as an introduction, I'm going to remind the differences between life cycle assessment and ecosystem services framework. So first, in terms of age, they are very different. LCA is much older than ecosystem services. They have different also origins. LCA comes from industry, whereas ecosystem services come from ecology and economics. And in terms of approach, LCA is based on an inventory and flows of energies and matters along the product life cycle, whereas custom services are rather about a service, so positive contribution, and it's typically assessed per hectare per year. So as I said, LCA is rather focusing on a negative environmental impact like CO2 equivalent emissions and acidification, whereas LCA is a service. They also differ in terms of tools. LCA has many databases and softwares, very user-friendly and very widespread. So softwares like EcoInvent and CIMAPro, whereas custom services is much less well-equipped. And in terms of functional unit, they also differ because LCA is rather based on a kilogram of product. You know very well, you have seen many evaluation per kg of beef or sheep or whatever. And the custom services is focused on hectares. And regarding the topic of our seminar this morning, life cycle assessment, as it's rather focused on product, it's adapted to assess food contribution, whereas ecosystem services can aid a wider scope and deal with non-food areas, but also on food. I'm going to detail this in a bit. And last thing, in terms of research, there are LCA and ES are very different communities, and so there are different worlds with different connections. So that's why, in fact, I wanted to get, I have an interest in combining both frameworks because there is a lack of communication. Again, another reminder about the different types of ecosystem services, because yes, this framework is not so well known in the general public. So you have three types of ecosystem services. The first one is provisioning, and it corresponds to the supply of physical goods like cereal, forage, and animal products. And so it's about food contribution. And the two other ones are regulating ecosystem services. The first one is regulating, yes. It corresponds to things that are well known, for example, carbon sequestration, and overall they are about physical, biophysical cycles, and also like water regulation and erosion prevention, and as I said, carbon cycles. And also you can include cultural ecosystem services that are more subjective things, for example, contribution to mental and cognitive well-being. For example, through landscape aesthetics, because it's well known that ruminants, for example, they can shape the landscape in a very significant way. But I'm not going to study there because there are represent methodological challenges that I will not detail here. But the point is on this slide is that you have two types of ecosystem services that correspond to non-food contributions. And so why is it interesting to apply both methodologies to livestock? The thing is that, I'm going to remind the result, I think, the ruminant meat, so food contribution, has much more detrimental effect than monogastric meat, according to life cycle assessment. So it's very well described in the literature. In terms of CO2 emission, land occupation, and energy consumption, ruminants are less well assessed, according to LCA. And the reason is ruminants have lower feed efficiency and fecundity than monogastrics, and they also generate methane emission through rumination. But on the other hand, ruminant systems can supply a higher level of regulating ecosystem services. So I remind, not food contribution, because of the grassland that can be involved in their production. So I'm going to illustrate that with these two pictures. So here on the left, this is what you need to feed monogastrics, so grain and cereal. And on the right, this is how you can feed ruminants. So even if you are not specialist of ecosystem services, your intuition will tell you that it seems that this area can supply more regulating ecosystem services than this crop field. And so our goal was to apply both frameworks to a range of contrasting livestock farming systems with ruminant and monogastrics to assess the food and non-food contribution of these two types of species, livestock species. Very briefly, in terms of method, for those who are interested in this, so we made our combined assessment on 1 kilogram of human edible protein produced by two types of by ruminant and monogastrics. We conducted the LCA from a database called Agri, for those who know. It's a French database on many different food products, and not only livestock products, but also cereal and anything, fruits. And we use the environmental footprint, again, for those who know. And here, what is a little bit new is that we use this inventory data to establish what I call the land cover profile, which is the percentage of cropland and grasslands of different types. And from this, we assess the regulating ecosystem services. And this was suggested by an author called Rugani et al. And again, that's the novelty of what I'm going to present. But I go straight to the results. So here, you have 12 bars that correspond to the 12 systems we studied. And I'm not going to go too much into details about all of them, but I will focus on two main results. So the first thing is that ruminants, they use ruminant systems in our case studies. They use much more land than monogastrics, which is something known, I remind. So you have about 800 meters versus 62 between the two systems. So more land is used by ruminant systems. But on the other hand, ruminant systems are based on much more grass. Again, I'm not going to detail, but just look that there is much more green here with what I'm showing than here with the monogastrics. So two main differences between the animal types. So you have different land cover profile, and when you combine this with the ecosystem service the different land covers provide, you will get something like this. And here in this table, I'm showing you scores that are obtained from a literature review for 6 ecosystem services. But I will go directly to the mean scores of these 6 ecosystem services. And you can see that you have a gradient from the annual crops to the temporary grasslands. So here I put an example of a temporary grassland without clover, organic. But again, that's just an example to show you the gradient. Then you have the permanent grasslands and the mountain graze rangeland. And also I put forest just for comparison, but to show you that you have gradient, and this gradient also corresponds to the fact that here with annual crops, you have habitats that are much more transformed by human activities, much more transformed than forest, which explain the gradient. And then when you have this and the land cover profile I showed, you can calculate weighted averages for each system. So basically, the scores, weighted by the percentage of different land covers. So it can, when you have this, you can do this. So that's a busy table, but I'm going to guide you through the results. So first result is that in terms of LCA impacts that are listed here, from acidification to land occupation, ruminants have higher LCA impacts than monogastrics. So again, that was announced by the literature. So that's we find again something which is known, so no surprise so far. So with what I explained you, with the land cover profile and the scores of regulating ecosystem services, you can get this, and this is this shows you that ruminants provides higher regulating ecosystem services than monogastrics. So it was suggested by the literature, but now we confirm it. And last thing, when you cross all this, for example, through correlation coefficients, here you can see that there are positives and also significantly statistically significant. It means that the more, the higher is your LCA impact, so a negative impact, the higher is your regulating ecosystem service. And I'm going to illustrate that with a graph. It will be much more explicit. And so you see here something that is really striking to me, that so here I plotted the amount of CO2 equivalent per kg of human edible protein, so food contribution. And here you have my chicken and my pig and chicken systems here in yellow. So they emit few CO2 equivalent compared to ruminants. But on the other hand, monogastric systems have lower scores of regulating ecosystem services than ruminants. So again, the more a system provides regulating the highest is its CO2 equivalent. So in fact, LCA and DS just disagree. They provide opposite assessments of food and non-food contribution. So again, this to me, this graph summarizes everything, the complexity of assessing systems with the current methodologies. And again, to me, that's something that really interrogates me. And I'm going to details what we can say about this. Is it a problem or not? So, but first, a methodological reminder. So using life cycle inventory data and database helped conduct ecosystem assessment and to connect two assessment worlds that were not connected so far. So that's a novelty, something new that I want to stress. We have seen also that life cycle and ecosystem metrics of food and non-food contribution express clear antagonisms. So it means that relying only on widely applied life cycle assessment hides the positive non-food contributions of grass-based extensive systems. So for example, all the pastoral systems that have usually poor performances according to LCA, in fact, it was not fair. So by combining both systems, you can have more balanced assessment. And so is it a problem to have two frameworks that say opposite things? So to me, not obligatorily, because an assessment method does not represent the truth. It's not an absolute truth that should be believed without interpretation. Each methodology has limits and application range. And to me, the thing is, we should not start to cry to say, oh, what should we do because methods say opposite things. To me, that the conclusion should be that they should give us messages to and point where to improve our systems to go for sustainability in both terms of ecosystem services and CO2 emissions, for example. And for example, introducing semi-natural infrastructure in monogastric systems could improve the regulating ecosystem services in monogastric areas, or improving the productivity of grass-based systems could also reduce the antagonism, and that's also a way of progressing. So that will be my final comment, and so if you have questions, feel free to ask. And also the results have just been published in Animal, and I put you the complete references, and I'm listening for questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Frédéric. That was really interesting. I think, you know, the antagonism between we'll say the emissions and the ecosystem services is really interesting. And I suppose your final conclusion is exactly what I think we would agree with in Animal Task Force. We must try to reduce the negatives associated with our livestock systems and accentuate the positives associated with them. So we need to try to bend that line, or make it more horizontal rather than the way you showed it in your graph. So any questions for Frédéric? Okay, one here at the top of the room from Jean-Louis Perrault.
You can hear me? Yes. Thanks, Frédéric, for the talk and the nice photo of la bande d'Ordanche behind you. My question is, considering the dairy system, you show that an opposition between monogastric and ruminants, but probably that very intensive dairy system based on maize with indoor scores look like more monogastric than ruminant in terms of ecosystem services. This is my first question. The second one is, can we imagine to introduce the score of ecosystem services into LCA analysis? Express per kg of product, because in this system, as you have behind you, very low level of protein production per hectare, but high ecosystem services. So very high ecosystem services per kg of protein, just to counterbalance the negative effect of equivalent CO2 emission.
So the first question is yes, the intensive dairy systems would look like monogastrics because of the reason you mentioned. They are crop-based, in short. And from a methodological viewpoint, yes, that was my idea with this study. It wouldn't be complicated. Technically, it wouldn't be so complicated to add the scores I presented, precisely because we calculated from the land cover profile, which precisely come from LCA. So I had in mind operational preoccupation in mind, and so it wouldn't be that complicated from a technical viewpoint to do. And last thing about the hectare, that's a result I didn't present because maybe it would have been too much. But the LCA impact per hectare are also very low for the system, for example, I have behind me. So there is those results are in the paper, and you show that if you assess the LCA impact per hectare, in fact, you find something similar to the ecosystem service assessment, that the extensive systems have the least impact.
Okay, listen, I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. There is another question here in the room, but we're out of time, Frédéric. So thank you very much again for your very interesting contribution, and we will leave you go back to that beautiful landscape behind you.
Thanks.
Okay. So our next presentation is by Alice Temple Costa. Alice is from Brazil, but she has worked here in Europe for many years. She has over 10 years' experience in the European trade associations in Brussels, and she's currently working for FEDIAF. And Alice is going to talk to us about the contribution of the livestock sector to the pet food industry. So over to you, Alice.
So here, just for me to understand, is this here?
Yeah, we want to move on.
Okay, thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. So I was already introduced. I am here in Brussels, based in Brussels, working for FEDIAF. We are the European Pet Food Association. So I will start presenting very quickly FEDIAF. So we are a normal association, like with 15 national associations as members and 5 direct companies. So we are represented through our members in 18 member states. So FEDIAF also works under its 3 pillars. So in the past, FEDIAF was founded, I forgot to say, was founded in 1970, so it's more than 50 years that this association is operating. In the beginning, the main focus was, of course, to be the voice of the pet food manufacturers, which continues to be our main focus. So we're going to see one of our pillars is the science and technical expertise. This is something that we continue to work, but we introduced since 2020 2 other pillars, that is animal welfare and also sustainability. So I'll be happy to discuss with you how we are working under those 3 pillars and all the activities. But I think my role here today is to also inform you and show you about some of the issues that we are facing. And you can see from the numbers that we are providing here the impact that this can bring. So today we see from our facts and figures that more than 50% of the households already own a pet. So, and this number is increasing. And we are, of course, one of the users of the byproducts. So we are very much concerned in one of the legislations that is already in place. And I would like to bring this concern to you today. So I'm so sorry if I will be stating the obvious for some of you, but I think it's important that we talk, that we are all on the same page in this issue. So basically, what is ABP? So coming from the legislation that we are talking about, there's the 1069 from 2009. So animal byproducts are materials of animal origins that people do not consume. And I want just to bring you this because in Europe, they are, let's say, categorized by 3 categories. So category 1, 2, and 3, depending on the source of raw material and the level of risk that they pose. So category 1 material shall comprise animals that were killed in the context of TSE eradication. This just to give you one example. So category 1 is really risky materials. And of course, we cannot use this to produce pet food. Category 2, I will try to be very simple in my explanation, but it's also risky materials from animals that were killed or from other diseases, can be animal flu, for instance. And of course, again, we cannot use this to produce pet food. Now we are entering the category 3. So which are bodies or part of the animals that are fit for human consumptions but are not intended for commercial reasons. And this can vary by member states to member states. So just one example, in Italy, they're going to eat tripa. So this is going to be entering the food chain. But in other member states, maybe they will not. And then this will be the byproduct and will be used. So as you can imagine, here I put a little bit of how it is used. For the wet and dry pet food. So we are very happy that is a sector that is very happily using those materials as the key material since the beginning. And we really think that this is under our circular way of using those materials. So let me just explain to you that since 2009, there is a directive that is in place, that is the Renewable Energy Directive. And the idea behind is great. We completely are supportive of the Green Deal. However, this we show, and we are also bringing the graphs from FPRA to show to you how some of the raw materials that we are using, and that's key for us, are being diverted. So you can see here, this first graph here is all about category 3, so the different colors are related to the different species. But you can see the amount of use of category 3 that is used for the biodiesel compared to the pet food today. And you can see the other graph, which is really interesting, that is from 2010 to 2022, the demand of the cat tree, how this increased in the biofuel. So this has grown 80%. And this is a result of a market distortion. So what we want to say is that in the past, everybody was using, this is a market competition, fine. But now we have here, since the publication of the Renewable Energy Directive, where markets, they have targets to meet, this is coming. And we're going to see that more. It was about road. Now we are talking about aviation and maritime. So we are expecting this demand for the use of CAT3 growing even more. Of course, those sectors, they are using CAT1 and CAT2, thank God. But probably it's not enough. So the CAT3 is now being used as well. But for us, we firmly believe that we should, the category 3 should first be used in the feed, or first of all in prevention, and then in the feed according to the waste hierarchy. So there is this provision in the EU. But apparently, the practice is not happening like this. So I think to conclude, I just want to state once again that we are in favor of the EU Green Deal. We are in favor of all the movements that we are going towards a more sustainable sectors for all sectors. But we do believe that the sectors cannot just be one sustainable and bringing others unsustainable. So I think it's important that we have this in mind and we have this holistic perspective when we are bringing targets. So since this is a directive, we are working with our members because now is one of a key important aspect that they are now doing the transposition of the directive at member state level. So we are working with our members to make sure that they are meeting their authorities. We are raising this point to them and trying to get some safeguards at national level to keep the CAT3. Because for the moment, in the renewable energy, you have the Annex 9, that is the list of all the feedstocks that can be used. Category 1 and 2, they are there, so they can be used. Category 3 is not there, and it's not mentioned in the mother regulation, in the mother directive. So it is a feedstock that is a kind of limbo, gray area, and in most of the member states that we have seen, category 3 is considered as a sustainable feedstock. So it is important that there is this overall knowledge about the situation and the impact that this can bring to the sectors. Not only pet food, other sectors are being impacted as well. We have been working together with APAC, with FIFAC, and even other, some NGOs as well, like Transport and Environment, to try to raise this concern. So it was a quick presentation, but I hope it could deliver the message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alice. Yeah, and if you can wait there, we may have time for a question or two. And I suppose, look, from the point of view of the livestock sector, it's great that these Category 3 non-food products are in such demand, but obviously too much demand from other sources, from your perspective. Any questions for Alice? Carlos?
Sorry, thanks so much. Sorry if there are very simple questions. One is, are there alternatives to this category 3? Can you source proteins elsewhere? And another one, is there a demand or even a possibility for plant-based pet food? I guess that in all these many households, there are people who are vegan, for instance. I would like to feed their animals with plants.
Thank you for this question. So regarding alternatives, I mean, yeah, members are already looking for alternatives, but this is something historically that we have been using. So if we talk about the general pet food production, everybody's using this. Then you go the niches. Of course, we might have vegetarian, vegan pet food for cats. They might have, but this is not a sustainable solution to go for those. And then on top of this, the alternatives that we could see, as I think you were also mentioning in your presentation, palm oil, is this sustainable? So the alternatives are not sustainable as we have today, as we are using today. And not only that, we do not have a one-to-one replacement. So today, the fats that we are using, they have specific characteristics, palatability, so many characteristics that in order to replace, we will need one or two other to have the same characteristics. So in terms of sustainability, this is why we are fighting for this, because it's not sustainable. So yeah, it is a big risk because there is no alternative for the volumes that we are producing today. And again, you can go for, if this is deviated for the transport, I think we are talking with Transport and Environment, is one NGO, one of the analyses that they were doing, you are deviating, but in terms of sustainability of that sector, catch-3 is not going to bring a big difference for them. But for us, is a huge volume. But we're comparing sectors that are huge with, we are small fish in the... So we are trying to make our voice heard, but yeah.
You're maybe small in terms of the overall use, but in terms of the number of pets in Europe, it is growing, and we all know that people are more and more treating their pets to a very, very high standard in terms of health care and nutrition. So just to follow on from that question, if the category 3s are not available, will very affluent pet owners, start to use food, material?
This is another topic that, of course, is something that I don't think no one wants to use food that is for humans to be producing pet food. I don't think no one has interest on that. Yeah. So
okay, listen, maybe we leave it at that, Alice. But I suppose, look, again, as I say, it's an often forgotten role that livestock fill, providing a very important part of the component of the diets of I suppose, pets, which are often very important members of the families of many European households. So we forget the contribution that livestock make to that member of the household in many parts of Europe. So thank you very much for your presentation. And we'll move on to our... Okay, Dalena, thank you for coming up the agenda a little bit.
No problem.
So Dalena is from the International Wool Textile Organisation and has over 20 years' experience in clothing design, textile manufacturing, merchandising and product sourcing for fashion retail. And she was appointed as Secretary General of the International Wool Textile Organisation based here in Brussels in June 2016. And Dalena is going to talk to us on... can't find, but obviously wool.
Wool.
Yes. So
I work for sheep.
Here. So, but I can guess that much.
Yes.
Over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the Director General for sharing our graphics earlier today, so you know exactly where I'm from. Disclaimer: I'm not a scientist, so I have access to many of those, but I cannot answer scientific questions. I'm from South Africa. I trained as a designer. I worked in manufacturing and with retail in South Africa, first in cotton and then in wool and then in the wool industry. And now my role here at IWTO is to promote and advocate for the use of wool. So thank you for this opportunity. A quick overview of IWTO. We're a not-for-profit organization representing the global wool industry. We strive for a sustainable, profitable industry working together for the future of wool. We supply a platform for all parts of the wool supply chain to connect. We strengthen the sustainability aspects of wool through scientific evidence. Our core values are global thinking, transparency, sustainability, and profitability. IWTO members represent the full wool pipeline from farm to fashion, and we currently have 38 members representing 26 countries globally. And this is why we do what we do. Wool is currently 1% of global fiber use, and we must work together to have any chance to have a voice in this world of polyester fibers. Our current global challenges are many, as you would know, and we know we have a waste crisis, and this is currently being swept under the carpet and we're eating the results of it in our fish. The EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles strive to reset this current consumer trend of take, make, and discard, which result in the fast fashion problem that we are dealing with. We know the fashion industry emits more CO2 than international flights and shipping combined. We also know that the average European consumer discards their textiles after only 8 times of wearing it. The product environmental footprint method, or PEF as it's known, is currently earmarked to solve our pollution problems in the textile world. But the PEF does not measure the true impact of microplastics. It does not measure circularity. And it does not measure the plastic content of our textiles. The PEF-CR suggests writing industry standards, such as the HIG Index, into European law, using the broken measuring tools we are currently using into our future legislation. Animals are treated as machines, while recycled PET bottles are considered to be green. So how do we fix this? We need to encourage private and public partnerships, such as this one, to support agricultural and rural development. We have to support our small-scale farmers. And we have to organize our local structures, also here in Europe, to make sure we leave no one behind. We have to unlock funding for wool sheep farming and promote the green economic benefits of the wool sheep. And there are so many. I don't have to list them. I think I'm speaking to the converted in this room. In order to do the above, we have to reset our thinking on how we measure the impact of animals on our land. We have to fix our measuring system. Sheep are part of a natural biogenic carbon cycle, not adding carbon emissions to our atmosphere. We have to award sheep farmers for the positive impacts they bring to our ecosystems by taking care of their animals and their land and their water resources, while sequestering carbon and not adding extra CO2 pollution to the environment. A wise man once said, "Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity." Simply taking industry standards into new textile law in the EU will not give us a different result. Our current footprinting measuring tools, such as the HIG, including simplistic LCAs, have brought us to this point, where 70% of our textiles are made from cheap polyester fibers. If we continue to award polyester and oil for being green and call out our animal fibers as bad for the planet, that green wedge that you see there will continue to grow, and our pollution problems will enable climate change as it does now. In 2021, the wool industry, IWTO, together with other concerned natural fiber industries, launched the Make Label Count campaign here in Brussels. I urge you to have a look at our website. I urge you to consider joining our voices and to make sure that we really measure, we change the way we measure, and we measure the correct impacts of natural fibers and the animals that produce them on our planet, and that we support our legislators to enable real change in our textile world in the future. I'm available for questions. I'm here until 1, and I can also answer some now.
Thank you very much, Dalena. So have we any questions for Dalena? Okay, all quiet, nothing in the chat. Okay, Dalena, well, I'm sure we'll have some questions at coffee time for you, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your time.
So we have one more presentation before coffee. And this is a joint presentation now from Lena and Dennis, Lena Jensen and Dennis WITTHÖFT. So Lena is responsible for the Secretariat of the Gelatine Manufacturers of Europe, and Dennis is Regulatory Affairs Manager at Gelata AG, one of the global leading companies in the production of gelatin and collagen peptides. And they're going to talk to us about the importance of livestock to the gelatine sector, challenges, needs, and future perspectives. So, over to you.
So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us, because as for the pet food, the gelatin industry is a perfect example of sustainability of the livestock sector. So, thanks a lot. So, first, I will give an update on our association, and afterwards, Dennis, the chair of our regulatory committee, will give all the information on our products. So, the GME has been founded in '74, so this year we have 50 years of anniversary, which is a very nice achievement. It represents around, so we have 11 members, and which represents around 100% of the gelatin European manufacturers. It also represents 70% of the global gelatin producers, because the gelatin industry is mainly a European industry, but also with sites out of Europe. So we have several committees, and we work on many issues. And just to give you some examples, we have the technical committee, which is working on ring test and testing methods, harmonization of testing methods, also producing monographs. We have the regulatory committee dealing with all the new regulation coming up, and there's a lot always to monitor, and also then providing comments and participating in all kinds of stakeholders events, and also producing statements. Then we have the Sustainability Committee, which was created around 10 years ago, and the main objective was to work on carbon footprint. And then we also afterwards continued with water footprint, and we in fact do it on a yearly basis. We monitor and produce statements on our website. We also work on animal welfare monitoring, so a lot of issues to deal with. And then with the PR committee, we work on the communication material, website, social media, and all the communication we can to help the customers of GME, and with the purpose to ensure the highest standards of quality, safety, and sustainability. So as I said, we have 11 members, but we also... but with around 21 sites in Europe. And they're all situated in different countries and often in rural regions. So that represents around 3,000 employment, direct employment, but of course also to be considered the indirect employment. So now Dennis will continue.
Yeah, thank you also from my side for the invitation and for giving the possibility to present the gelatin industry as a contributor on circularity and sustainability in the whole supply chain. So, what is gelatin and collagen? This is not the core topic of today's meeting, but I would like to say where gelatin and collagen peptides come from, and I'm really happy that we already heard our products in prior presentations, because it's an important product in, let's say, the topic of circular economy. Gelatin, collagen peptides are pure proteins from animal raw materials, which are rich in collagen. And collagen is, so to say, the most abundant protein in mammals, so let's say in humans as well as in animals. And yeah, let's say collagen holds our bodies together. So Gelatin is manufactured by the extraction in water of collagen, which is present in mainly the skins and bones of animals. And this is our production process. In the annex of our presentation, you find a general, if you are interested in general process scheme, how gelatin is manufactured. And in addition, because you know, I'm sure, the leaf gelatin from the households, you have the gelling properties. In addition, we have the collagen peptides. This has an additional process step by using enzymes. With this, the collagen is further degraded into smaller peptide chains. Okay, next part. So, as it is a pure protein, it's a healthy food. And we could say this because there's a long tradition in production, but also a long tradition in the consumption, human consumption, without any known adverse effects. So we can really say, based on the history of safe use, but also based on studies, that gelatin as well as collagen peptides are safe food ingredients. And it is a food ingredient, I think it was on the former slide, it's, let's say, like other traditional food ingredients with technological properties, specifically excluded from the food additive definition. So, how to keep gelatin and collagen safe? We have regulations to follow. Yeah, it's an animal-derived product, and in the EU, we have high and strict requirements which we need as a manufacturer to comply with. Let's say it starts with raw material sourcing. All raw materials used for gelatin and collagen production must be fit for human consumption, meaning that it is derived from animals which have been found fit for human consumption following ante and post-mortem inspection by an official veterinarian. On our website and the presentation, you find further information on the safety of our product. Now we come to the actual context of sustainability and circular economy. So, and here, as a gelatin industry, we are convinced that we have, or let's say, a big contributor on circular economy. This is in our DNA of the gelatin industry. Yeah, because the raw materials which we use are the byproducts of the slaughtering of animals. The animals, and it's mentioned here, are not slaughtered primarily for the production of gelatin and collagen. The demand of slaughtering is based on the meat consumption. So, if there's a gelatin industry or not, the animal will be slaughtered. But the other way around, if there's a demand for gelatin, but no demand for meat, we cannot produce our products anymore. And therefore, as our industry has really a core interest that, let's say, the supply chain and the farming conditions within Europe, and we are convinced that we have more or less the best farming conditions worldwide, that we can further improve these conditions so that there's really a social consensus on farming of animals for human consumption to eat meat. Because otherwise, we as a gelatin industry, we would have a big problem. We would not be able anymore to produce our products. And there are good reasons. We have the modern term upcycling. Yeah? We do upcycling since the beginning of our industry. Yeah? Because we are converting the byproducts into valuable products, into proteins, which can be used in many, many different applications. In food, but also in other key applications. We will see it in the next slides. And then, the production of gelatin collagen does not produce further waste, which is, from our perspective, also important, because by the production of gelatin during the extraction, further byproducts, the byproducts of the gelatin production, occurs. And also these products find reasonable uses in other industries. So to extract the collagen, we need, of course, a high amount of energy. Otherwise, we cannot produce our product. But the gelatin industry cares about its environmental impact and is voluntarily monitoring on a yearly basis the carbon and water footprints of gelatin production. So overall, we are convinced that we give really a positive impact on sustainability to the supply chain. Quick overview. What are the raw materials? It's the pig skins as a byproduct from the meat industry. We have the bovine hides, the hide splits as a byproduct from the leather production. Yeah, it's really the split. It's a nice term because you have the upper and the down leather hide, and in the tanneries, the leather is splitted, and the byproduct of the leather industry is then used for the production of gelatin. We have further the bovine bones, a small amount of pig bones, and also fish skin as suitable raw materials. And then a short overview about the byproducts of gelatin production. You can call it the byproducts of the byproduct. So you see here, we have in the pig skin not only collagen, we have huge amounts of fat. The fat is used for animal nutrition, pet food, also in aviation, kerosene, biodiesel production. Then we have from the bone gelatin at the very beginning of the process and the maturization of the bones, where the ocean for gelatin production is made. We have decalcium phosphate, which is used as fertilizer, but which can also be used as an animal feed. And the same for fish gelatin. We have also the processed animal protein, because not all protein is really collagen in the byproducts. So you see, every, let's say, stream has a reasonable use, and we have, in fact, no waste from the production of our products. And then we come to the application, and this makes it very interesting. You see here, the majority around, it's an estimation, 50% goes into food, but there's also 30% which goes into the farmer market. And I don't know if you can see it. We have an estimation, a demand of 280 metric tons of gelatin for food production. Ah, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. When you see this number of 280 tons, gelatin is not consumed by itself. It's used in small amounts to produce different types of foods. And let's estimate that 5% are in the final consumed product. That means that with a gelatin production, you have a food volume of around 5.5 million tons. And this shows quite nice how big the impact of our products are. Because if these products are not available or in less quantities, the industry must react and has to find alternatives. That's for food. For farmers, 30%. Everyone has eaten, if vegan or not, I'm sure everyone has eaten a gelatin capsule in his life, because it's really the major material for capsule production. Here's a nice overview, and I think due to time, you have it in your slides to follow up. So, what is important is that gelatin as a natural product derived from natural raw materials needs a healthy environment, so to say. And therefore GME supports, of course, the targets of the European Green Deal to keep the biodiversity and so on. No? It's really important that we care about it, but there needs to be a scientific evidence approach, because everything what is discussed actually, and I think the former slide shows it, it has really a huge impact, not only on meat production or on gelatin production, there's also the downstream industry, so to say, which has really issues if suitable and safe raw materials would not anymore available. Yeah. And we have seen it due to Corona. There was really uncertainty in the market, and we observed, let's say, less available or a decrease in meat production, and that has already had an impact on the availability of raw materials. So what would happen if there will be a consistent demand for gelatin production? We need to source the raw materials, or we need to produce the products outside Europe. And then we have to ask ourselves, is the overall goal? Yeah? Do we want to ensure food security, or do we want, let's say, source important ingredients from outside Europe? And we should not forget, due to, let's say, all the relevant key applications, production of pharmaceuticals, but also the different needs from the food industry needs to be replaced. And if the demand is coming from third countries, we must consider that it is at least likely that the third country will not follow, let's say, the sustainability, or we call it CSR requirements, that they fulfill all these requirements in the same level as Europe does. Then we come to our last chance. And this brings us to the challenge and to the question if a replacement by plant-based products is really useful and possible. Yeah? We see it here. We have solutions which provides safety. We have solution which provides sustainability, yeah, because the raw material is there. We do not need other resources which could be, in theory, in confronts with food production. So we have really a safe solution for so many different applications. And even if we ask if we would switch to a more plant-based diet, can these plants deliver byproducts where, let's say, replacement products for gelatin can be produced out of it? It could be, yeah? But we should decide only if the alternatives are there and not to take a risk that safe products are not usable anymore. So, and this is also the outcome of the survey, what we did this year. We have a global coalition of gelatin manufacturers, and our customers really say that they are in favor to use upcycled and sustainable products because for them, yeah, they have already a safe product and they want to keep it and they want to support us in this way forward. And this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Lena and Dennis, for a very interesting outline of, again, a very valuable byproduct from livestock production that we often just forget actually comes from livestock. So thank you for that. We have time for one question, if there is one, from either the audience or online. If not, I'm going to thank you for that, and we're going to go to our coffee, our tea, a nice plant-based product now. Of course, we'll have the milk as well in it. So back here at 11, hopefully. Okay, we're scheduled for 11, so that's 5 minutes shorter than scheduled, but we'll try and get back for 11.